Jacob never planned to be a hero that morning. But when two tiny German Shepherd puppies stood in the middle of a deserted road, blocking his path and begging for help, he stopped. Moments later, he would uncover a truth so heartbreaking it would stay with him forever. Jacob, a retired truck driver, had taken to early morning walks along this quiet route, enjoying the peace it offered. That morning, the only sounds were the crunch of gravel beneath his boots and the distant hum of cicadas. But then, movement caught his eye. Two tiny shapes stood at the edge of the road, just a few yards ahead. As he drew closer, Jacob realized. They were puppies, German shepherds, no more than a few weeks old. They weren't playing or wagging their tails. Instead, they were balanced on their hind legs, front paws lifted toward him like children asking to be picked up, their dark, glassy eyes locked onto his, silently pleading. Jacob froze, his heart tightening. He had seen stray dogs before, but never anything like this. The air felt heavier now, as if the quiet road was holding its breath. The puppies didn't move, didn't blink. They just stared at him, trembling slightly in the morning breeze. And in that instant, Jacob knew something was wrong, desperately wrong. Jacob took a slow, cautious step forward, his voice low and steady. "Hey there, little ones, it's okay," he murmured, as if speaking to frightened children. The puppies didn't back away, but their tiny bodies quivered with every breath. One of them tilted its head, ears twitching at the sound of his voice that he crouched, lowering himself to their level. From this close, he could see the dust clinging to their fur and the faint outlines of their ribs. Their paws were raw, tiny pads scraped as if they'd been walking far too long on unforgiving ground. A faint whimper escaped from one, a sound so soft he almost didn't hear it. Jacob extended his hand slowly, palm up. The braver of the two sniffed at his fingers before nudging them lightly, as though testing if this stranger was safe. The other pup stayed pressed close to its sibling, eyes darting toward the open road, as if expecting danger to return. That a knot formed in Jacob's stomach. These weren't simply lost puppies. They were hungry, exhausted, and afraid of something more than just being alone. Whatever had brought them here, it wasn't just chance, and Jacob was determined to find out. That Jacob's eyes swept the desolate roadside, searching for any sign of where the puppies had come from. No leash, no collar, no worn-out blanket someone might have left behind. Just the wind rustling through the tall, brittle grass. That a few feet away, he noticed faint paw prints pressed into the dusty shoulder of the road. They were small, scattered, and trailed off toward a shallow ditch that ran parallel to the asphalt. Something about their uneven pattern made him uneasy, as if the pups had been running back and forth in distress. He rose slowly, motioning for the puppies to stay put, though they followed him with their eyes, paws shuffling anxiously. The ditch was choked with weeds and litter, the kind of place most people wouldn't bother looking. Jacob crouched low, brushing aside the grass with his hand, but that's when he saw it, a patch of flattened earth, as if something had been lying there recently. A few strands of coarse fur clung to the weeds, swaying in the breeze. His pulse quickened. This wasn't just a random spot, it was where the trail ended. And whatever had been here before might explain why the puppies were begging him for help. Jacob pushed the grass aside, his fingers brushing something cold and unmoving. His breath caught as he realized it wasn't debris, it was fur. Lying in the ditch was an adult German shepherd, her body curled protectively, as if still shielding something. Her coat, once likely thick and beautiful, was matted with dust and streaked with grime. Jacob's chest tightened when he noticed the stillness. No rise, no fall of breath. The puppies had followed him now, their tiny paws crunching the dry grass. They whimpered softly, noses pressing into their mother's side. One pawed at her shoulder, as though trying to wake her, but she didn't stir. Jacob's throat burned. It was painfully clear. She had stayed here until her last moment, guarding her pups from whatever dangers they had faced. The exhaustion, the hunger, the fear in their eyes, it all made sense now. He knelt beside her, placing a hand gently on her head. "You did your best," he whispered, voice breaking. The puppies looked up at him, their tiny bodies trembling, and in their gaze he saw both loss and desperate hope. Jacob knew he couldn't change what had happened here, but he could change what happened next. And in that moment, he silently promised their mother that her pups would be safe, no matter what it took. Jacob didn't waste another second. He slipped off his jacket, shaking it out before gently scooping up the two trembling puppies. They were lighter than he expected, their fragile bodies sinking into the folds of fabric as if grateful for the warmth. The pups huddled against his chest, their tiny hearts pounding rapidly against his own. One let out a soft whine, the other simply pressed its face into his arm, refusing to let go. Jacob could feel the faint tremors running through them, the kind born from exhaustion and feared as he hurried back toward his truck. He glanced over his shoulder once. The image of their mother burned into his mind. He wished he could take her, too, but he knew the most urgent thing now was saving her babies. The old pickup roared to life, gravel spitting from the tires as Jacob sped toward the nearest animal clinic. Every bump in the road made the puppies cling tighter, their small paws gripping his jacket. He kept murmuring to them, promising it would be okay, though he wasn't sure who he was trying to reassure more, them or himself. The clinic door swung open before Jacob had even knocked twice. A young veterinary nurse took one look at the bundle in his arms and rushed him inside. The air smelled faintly of antiseptic and warm hay, the kind of place where lives were saved every day. But Jacob had no idea how bad things truly were. He laid the puppies gently on a stainless steel table. The vet, a calm-faced woman with quick, practiced hands, began her examination. She checked their gums, their tiny paws, and listened to their breathing. Her brow furrowed almost immediately. "They're severely dehydrated," she said, her voice low, "and malnourished. But there's more." Jacob's stomach tightened. "These pups have been without proper food or water for days," she continued. "If they'd gone another 24 hours out there, they might not have survived." She looked up at him, her eyes sharp with urgency. Whatever happened to their mother? She must have fought to keep them alive until she couldn't anymore. Jacob's hands curled into fists. The thought of the puppies dying alone in that ditch was unbearable. The vet placed a reassuring hand on his arm. "We can save them, but it's going to take round-the-clock care." Jacob nodded without hesitation. "Then I'm staying. Whatever they need, I'll make sure they get it." By the third day, there were signs of change. The braver pup lifted its head when Jacob walked in, tail twitching weakly. The smaller one, once too weak to stand, managed a few wobbly steps toward him before collapsing into his lap. Jacob smiled for the first time since finding them. Each day brought a new victory. They began eating soft food, licking the bowls clean. Their eyes, once dull and lifeless, now followed him around the room. And when Jacob spoke, their ears perked as if they understood every word. The bond between them grew quickly. They no longer cried at night, not as long as they could hear his voice. For Jacob, each wag of their tails felt like a silent thank you, a sign they were leaving the shadows of their past behind. Their fur was glossy, their eyes bright, and their paws steady beneath them. They bounded across the floor whenever Jacob walked in, their playful barks filling the air like music. The day had come for their adoption papers to be finalized. Jacob sat at the small wooden desk, pen in hand, but paused for a moment, watching them wrestle with each other in the corner. He thought of the ditch, their mother's still form, and the promise he'd made that day. When the pen touched paper, it wasn't just a signature, it was a vow. A vow that they would never be abandoned, never go hungry, and never feel fear. Again, if sensing it, both puppies sprinted toward him, tails wagging furiously, leaping into his lap. Their new life had officially begun, together.